My rapist has never offered an apology or any indication of regret for what he did. It frightens me to think that someone could attack another person and never feel the need to apologize or show any sense of remorse.
That was the victim. We don't have to say accuser anymore. That's the victim of a horrific rape in a hotel up in Boston around the time of St. Patrick's Day. Her rapist, Terence Crosbie, an Irish firefighter who was in the United States and in Boston for the St. Paddy's Day celebration and parade. But instead of celebrating that way, he raped this woman. Today was Judgment Day, Sentencing Day. Let's take a listen to what the convicted rapist had to say.
Your Honor, I thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here today. I understand the seriousness of the situation. I respect you, I respect this courtroom, I respect the jury, and I respect everybody involved in this process. I have the deepest respect for this court and the legal system. I recognise the weight of this court's responsibility, and I appreciate the time and attention the court has given my case. I've dedicated over 18 years of my life selflessly serving the people and the citizens of Dublin, and I hope to contribute to society again someday. I ask that the court take into account the large number of character references that have been submitted by my family, work colleagues and people from both sides of the world, including the cities of Dublin, Boston and further afield. Also, please consider the impact on my family, including my wonderful wife and my two beautiful young daughters, who not only wait at home in a different country from me, but also rely on me as the single sole main provider of our family and our family home. I ask that you please take these things into consideration, Your Honour, and I thank you again for giving me the opportunity to speak here today. Thank you.
I don't know what he was thinking. I don't understand why you would do that. You've got this great family in Ireland. You come to the United States to celebrate St. Patrick's Day. And I get it, people drink. But give me a break. Give me a break. All right, let's take a listen to the judge who handed down this sentence.
In this case, the victim was safely asleep under the covers in a locked hotel room. The defendant attacked a woman who was asleep, defenseless. Mr. Crosbie committed a predatory sexual act. It is an act of extraordinary sexual violence. The victim resisted, and Mr. Crosbie persisted. Mr. Crosbie prolonged the violence, the fear, the trauma as he continued to assault and batter the victim as she tried to escape the sexual assault. This level and length of violence is an aggravating factor. The Commonwealth's recommendation of 9 to 12 years is a reasonable recommendation, considering the violence, the trauma he inflicted. I also consider as a mitigating factor Mr. Crosbie's work in his community, both with his family and as a firefighter, first responder, paramedic. I have a great deal of respect for the work that people in those public service jobs do, and I do consider that a mitigating factor of what he had contributed to his community through his work and family life. When I put together all of the factors, including the aggravating and the mitigating that I mentioned, the sentence is going to be not less than 7 years, not more than 9 years in the Massachusetts State Prison.
Okay. Carmen Rowe, Ali Benevento, Stacey Honowitz still with us. Stacey, was justice served today up in Boston?
I absolutely think it was, and I got to tell you something. He was a lot more respectful to the court than, Don Adelson was. He didn't accuse the court of being biased against him. He basically, the judge, reiterated exactly what the prosecution said. This was a violent assault by a person who was sleeping. It was ongoing, and he let those factors into the sentence. On the flip side to that, he did take into consideration, as he said, that, we're not looking at any prior convictions, which is extremely important, and also the fact that he's a first responder and certainly has given back to the community. So I do feel as though this was a fair sentence, and I know that this case has really caused a lot of controversy. I've read the Vinnie Politan personal group on Facebook where people don't believe he should have ever been convicted. In this case, I think justice was served. I think the jury was correct. They got it right the second time around. I think she was credible, and I think the prosecution was able to bring out the holes in his story that led to the conviction in this case.
Agree, disagree? Carmen?
I personally think, I'm sorry. I personally think he got off light. I mean, look, if you believe everything that happened in this trial was true, and then you hear what this judge says about how violent this rape was, no, 7 to 9 years is light for someone like him. And the fact that he doesn't have a prior criminal history, I don't even know if that's true. He's from Ireland. I mean, we're here in the States. A lot goes on in other countries, and a lot of things are tolerated in other areas that wouldn't be tolerated here. If it really is the violent rape that this judge suggested it was after listening to 2 trials, I think 7 to 9 was a gift, and everyone should say thank you. As far as whether or not there was sufficient evidence in this case, you know, I've seen court TV, I've seen all the commentators on this case, and the truth is that there's more evidence than there is in most cases like this, where there's just a he said, she said. There's actual physical evidence. There's a defendant who lied. There's plenty to work with here. And again, I think what the judge said in the room tells me a lot about what the value of this case was. And in Texas, it would be higher than 9 years.
Carmen, you would have been able to find out.
I was thinking the same thing, Carmen, here in South Carolina.
Go ahead, Allie.
I was just saying, here in South Carolina, I think the sentence under these circumstances, now that he's been found guilty of the jury, if a judge here had heard those same circumstances and accepted them, you know, as the jury said, these are the facts, then that sentence would have been much, much higher. I do think, however, that the judge did a good job in explaining the basis for the sentence and setting out the mitigating and the aggravating factors. I don't know what a typical sentence for this type of offense in Massachusetts is, but I'm with Carmen. Texas, South Carolina, he would have gotten a whole heck of a lot more time under these circumstances.
The prosecution that was the guidelines that the prosecution laid. I mean, listen, I prosecuted all these cases for 30 years. I'm not saying that he got, you know, a stiff sentence in this case, but the prosecution and what they were asking for, the judge went within the prosecution's asking. And the fact of the matter is, if he had prior convictions, if he had violence in his past, the prosecution certainly would have been able to find out. I've tried cases, and we know that prosecutors are able to get that information. So if he had a violent history, you can best believe that the prosecutors, after a second trial and how the ongoing length of this case, would have been able to find out what was going on in his past. And he probably, if he had a violent history, wouldn't have been able to be a first responder like he was. So, you know, in looking at this case, we can all say he should have gotten 50 years. This is within what the prosecution was asking for based on the facts of this case.
You know, the part that
I'm not saying he should have gotten 50 years or more. I just was surprised how little he got, considering the statement that the judge made on the record at sentencing. That's all. Wasn't necessarily disputing the sentence. I understand that was the guideline. Those were the guidelines.
Yeah, so he comes in at 7 to 9.
What can you do?
Yeah, he comes in at 7 to 9. They ask for 9 to 12, so it's within the guideline. One final question, and I'm trying to I don't understand why with this, right? Like, how do we get inside this guy's mind and try to figure out why he would engage in behavior like this? To me, it makes zero sense. It's a guy, he's got the family. I get it. He's on the road, whatever. He was trying to get lucky. He didn't get lucky. How does that turn into rape, forcible rape? I don't get it, Stacey.
I do. I mean, it's a crime of opportunity, and there's plenty of times when this goes on. He knew that this girl had gone back with his roommate, and he probably thought if she's consensually having sex with him, then I can get in on the action too. And so it's not that unusual. It's terrible and it's horrible that someone would do something like this, but I've seen a lot of cases like this where he basically thought, I'm away, I've had a couple of drinks, she's gone back to the room, she obviously wants to have sex with my roommate, and so she probably would have sex with me too. And she didn't. She didn't do it consensually. And I think that's what people were trying to figure out. And I think that was the holdup. People were thinking to themselves, well, listen, she just met this guy. She went back to the room with him. You know, she's easy. I hate to say it, but that's the reality of it. And this guy, what does she have to win by having the world know that she had consensual one-night stand,
Right.
and then all of a sudden
That makes
this
no
guy
sense.
raped her. And I think that's what the jury was listening to.